Good morning. It is Wednesday, December the 29th. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. And we start with this story as elections are in the air. The announcement of general elections to take place here in Barbados in less than a month on January 19th seems to have taken some members of the public by surprise. We hear more from Crystal Hoyt.
Barbadians will be going to the polls in a matter of weeks, as Prime Minister Mia Amor-Mottley announced that elections will be held on January 19th. On the ground, many are shocked by the early announcement, as elections were constitutionally due in 2023.
So it was a bit shocking, obviously, to hear it. I don't think the opposition party will be ready enough in time to deal with it, that's the honest truth.
Really shocked because early it's only 3.5 years, right? And usually it's 5 years. I'm hoping that the Prime Minister they do the whole 5 years, right? Because she's doing a good job. You get me? So I hope now that she'll bring back.
The other party's not prepared as yet. So clearly she has a clear advantage.
She reserves the right to make the call whenever she cares to, right? And we think that she's the best leader. As a matter of fact, there is no other.
What do you think the outcome will be?
The outcome? I don't know what the outcome. I hope the outcome is the best for everybody that live in Barbados. No? That is the honest truth. That everybody could live through.
This is gonna be close. This is gonna be close. But the lady had a fight. She fight well.
Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
Meanwhile, the opposition leader, Bishop Joseph Atherley, does not agree with the timing of Barbados' upcoming general elections. During a news conference last evening, he questioned the rush for the polls a year and a half before they are constitutionally due. Bishop Atherley calls the move callous and reckless, noting the country is still battling the COVID-19 pandemic. He says he's maintaining a similar position to the one he held for the 2020 St. George North election, and that was a by-election on that occasion.
It was not necessary to have the by-election then. It was a matter of political convenience for the party, the government. It is not necessary to have a general election now 1 year and a half before its constitutionally due date. In the middle of a pandemic, when we're facing down the prospects of having the latest of the variants being present among us, and the government really should tell us if that variant is already here.
Reverend Atherley says his People's Party for Democracy and Development will have more to say on the elections today.
I'll deal with party readiness on Thursday in a briefing with you. This today is simply to respond to yesterday. From my personal perspective, I expected that an election would come before 2023 for several of the reasons that I have given, that I expected in January of 2022. I would not say I expected it.
And of course, we'll be having comprehensive coverage on the elections as we get up to that January 19th date right here on the Morning Report and here on CBC TV 8. We'll take a break here and come back with our COVID-19 updates. The recent seesaw trend in terms of our COVID-19 numbers here in Barbados continues. The Best Dos Santos Public Health Lab has identified 112 new cases, 50 males and 62 females, from the 705 tests conducted on Monday. Of those new cases, 14 individuals are under the age of 18, while there are 111 people now in isolation facilities and 874 others in home isolation. Looking at other stories further afield in Jamaica, a survey has revealed citizens have a general distrust in the government's vaccination program.
A target of 65% vaccination by March 2022 is in jeopardy as fewer Jamaicans are going for the jab locally. Only about 19% of Jamaicans have been vaccinated against COVID-19. But why is that? Director of Institutional Research at Northern Caribbean University, NCU, Paul Bourne, says that has to do with trust.
We are seeing that only 19.3% of Jamaicans trust the government, and many persons do not. Many persons think that there's a sinister motive behind the vaccination. So if they do not trust the government and they think that the campaign has some other plan or some other thing to do with it, then what is happening is that they are going to be reluctant to be vaccinated.
Mr. Bourne says, based on the research from his team, approximately 64% of Jamaicans believe that there is an ulterior motive behind the vaccine initiative. Based on that fact, he says the government should not be the ones leading the charge.
Because 7 out of every 10 Jamaicans say that they will be vaccinated if they think the vaccination is working, or if they think the scientists are coming out and actually letting them be told what the vaccination is all about. So the doctors, the epidemiologists, the virologists are the persons who should be taking the charge, as against the Minister of Health and the Prime Minister and other government members relating to the vaccination.
There were also concerns that the vaccines were being forced on Jamaicans. Mr. Bourne says 55% of the respondents believe they were being forced to be inoculated. He says if that messaging continues, it could be detrimental to the goal of receiving herd immunity through vaccination. He is also calling for a revision of any policy to institute mandatory vaccination.
1 in every 4 Jamaicans at the moment is vaccinated, which means that 3 in every 4 is not vaccinated. So if you're going to use a mandatory vaccination and persons think that there is a motive behind what you're doing, then what you're going to be having is chaos if we were to have any other outbreak of this virus happening in Jamaica, because people do not trust you. They think that there's a motive behind what you're doing. They think the campaign has some other reason behind it. So what we are doing, we are alienating the people. So if you were to use mandatory vaccination, or people think that you're enforced to be vaccinated, then what we're going to be having is most Jamaicans looking in to be vaccinated and won't be vaccinated, even though they think it's important.
The research, titled Jamaicans' Decisions on COVID-19 Vaccination, a national cross-sectional empirical survey, had a sample size of 1,074 respondents across the 14 parishes in Jamaica. It has a margin of error of 5%.
New Year's Eve plans in England have been given the green light as the government there will not be imposing any further restrictions before the new year.
The Christmas and New Year holiday period was always likely to speed the advance of the Omicron variant, and so it is proving. In the UK, a record 129,000 new infections were reported on Tuesday, but the government's decision not to disrupt New Year celebrations and instead to emphasise vaccine booster shots reflects positive signs that hospital admissions and death numbers aren't rising with the same intensity.
We're looking at the data and we wouldn't hesitate to act if we saw that the data told us that we needed to introduce further measures, but so far that's not what the data is telling us.
The cautious optimism that Omicron may be less of a threat than the previous Delta variant isn't being embraced everywhere. Countries like the Netherlands, Austria and Denmark are under varying degrees of lockdown, and in Spain a wave of new infections has provoked such public concern that free COVID-19 tests are running out. France, though, is holding its nerve, also promoting vaccine booster shots as the first line of defence. It's reduced the required delay before getting a booster from 4 months to 3.
I think the government is doing what they can with what they know about this virus that is spreading throughout the world. It's not only here. We just hope that there won't be a 5th, 6th, 7th or 8th dose, but they're doing what they must.
Germany is taking a hybrid approach, buying time, the government says, for boosters to work, with a range of restrictions including restaurant curfews, nightclub closures and limits on sports and other public gatherings. It's expected that Omicron will become the dominant coronavirus strain in Germany within days.
Something has to be done to bring the infection figures down. I also understand that we have to look ahead to the next few weeks.
Looking ahead is made easier by watching what's happening in the UK, currently the Omicron epicentre. The UK government's light touch, booster-driven gamble based on data that's still evolving will either be proven right to everyone's relief or wrong, perhaps giving other countries just enough time to change course.
In another part of the world, the statistics are in, and South America is now the most vaccinated continent. 63% of citizens there are fully vaccinated.
It's been a remarkable story for a region like South America that has been one of the most affected in the world during this pandemic, especially throughout 2020 and the beginning of 2021. If you think about it, South America is only 8% of the world's population, but by mid-2021 it accounted for more than a third of coronavirus-related deaths globally. That gives you an idea of just how bad the situation has been here. We've reported on the worst of the crisis. In 2020, we've seen body abandoned on the streets of cities in Ecuador. There was lack of oxygen, and there was countries had a very hard time getting jabs, getting vaccines for their population. But that has been changing throughout 2021, and now, as you were saying, is the region in the world with the highest number of vaccinated people. Why is that? Also because a lot of people here have probably had less resistance towards being vaccinated. In general, South Americans are more obedient to it when it comes to recommendations on their health coming from the government. And also, there is a history here of big vaccination campaigns against diseases like yellow fever, for example, in many countries. So I think a lot of people were more confident about getting their shot, even if there were, of course, exceptions. The most famous one, the president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, very vocal against vaccines, against lockdowns, but most of the people in Brazil in the end did get their jab. Consider in cities like Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo, more than 90% of the people have already got 2 shots. Many people are already their booster shot.
So the focus on the boosters and vaccinations for COVID-19 across the world. Let's go now to Pearson to hear what he has for you on this Wednesday edition of Morning Barbados. Pearson.
Good morning, Shane. Good morning, everyone. Who would have thought it's already Wednesday? Well, coming up, we'll talk a little bit about the percutaneous lithotomy. I know, listen, big words, not my words, but our urologist will come to talk with us a little bit about that. Talking about the management of kidney stones, simply put. Also today, just ahead of the launch of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in Motion, the chair of the Public Affairs Subcommittee, the Public Awareness Subcommittee, will talk to us about what we can expect tomorrow when they launch that Intangible Cultural Heritage in Motion. And we'll also today be delving into our manager's toolkit, taking a look at that big thing called delegation, the art and science of delegation. So if you're in a position of superiority, supervisory role, management, then this is for you. Just a little bit of what you can expect when you join me at 6:30. Back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Pearson. Some good news now this morning for some motorists who traverse a certain area in St. Joseph, and a new light bulb system could be coming to Barbados. Details on these stories and more next. The road at Dark Hole in St. Joseph has been reopened. That's the word coming from the Attorney General and, of course, the MP for St. Joseph, Dale Marshall, who says the Ministry of Public Works responded very quickly there.
They were on the job first thing this morning, and by 3 o'clock this afternoon they were able to have the issue completely resolved. I wouldn't say it was an easy fix. I don't think anything in the Scotland district is going to be an easy fix, but they were able to identify the problem very, very quickly and put the solution in place. And they spent the entire day putting in material, compacting, putting in more material and compacting. And we're in a position to reopen that road from 3 o'clock today.
Land slippage in that area caused a collapse of the road, a partial collapse of the road, and created a very dangerous situation for motorists traversing the area there. Meanwhile, we hear a better light bulb system is coming to Barbados. The use of inefficient bulbs will soon be a thing of the past as part of government's plans to move Barbados to a carbon-neutral country by 2030. The acting project officer in the Ministry of Energy, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, Delano Scanterbury, says it's the first of a 5-part process which will start on January 1st.
This is a stepping up process. Any bulb below 15 lumens. Then in 6 months' time, we move to any bulb below 25 lumens. And eventually, we will reach the bulbs that we would prohibit bulbs below 55 lumens. But that wouldn't be until the 1st of July, I believe, 2023. And each 6 months that transitions, you go from prohibitions on the importation, but 6 months later, you prohibit the manufacture and sale.
And Chief Technical Officer at the Barbados National Standards Institution, Fabian Scott, says the phasing out of inefficient light bulbs will result in savings to users.
For residential customers, it depends on behavior, but for the commercial customers, they definitely will see the benefits. Because in a commercial setting, you're operating your business for over sometimes 8-10 hours a day, or 12 hours or more. So the commercial sector definitely will benefit significantly from these changes, so long as they make those lighting technology changes with the efficient bulbs.
Back in Jamaica, the Medical Association there is calling for a cancellation of the 1 a.m. curfew for the New Year Eve celebrations. There we hear more in this report.
Omicron cases are surging to record numbers across the world, and Jamaica's health ministry has already indicated that the COVID-19 variant is already in the country. But with an already fragile health system, a local increase in hospitalization remains a major concern. Last week, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton announced that daily surge in cases in Jamaica could rise to 1,500. Now, from the opposition's point of view, the government should be better prepared this time around.
I am not holding my breath on that particular one. The reality is that we have seen it. Nothing much has changed. Nothing much has changed in terms of how the hospitalization and the hospitals have been set up to cater to the numbers that we are expecting.
President of the Medical Association of Jamaica, Dr. Brian James, is calling for Prime Minister Andrew Holness to cancel the 1 a.m. curfew for New Year's Eve amid a spike in the country's COVID-19 positivity rate. It comes against the backdrop of a 25.2% increase on Sunday, up from 10.8% the previous day.
It's difficult to see how those kinds of easing of restrictions, would not be and have a negative impact on our COVID numbers.
But opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy, is of a different view. He believes despite the rise in the positivity rate, it's still early days yet.
We cannot rely on the 1 day or the 2 days of 12% and then 20% positivity rate to say that we are seeing an increase. It's more reflective of what is happening in the graph. So I would say, in response to your question, that it is early days yet, and we should get an assessment of what is happening on a weekly basis.
National epidemiologist Dr. Karen Webster-Carr recently said the wave of infections in a possible fourth wave will likely surpass the third wave caused by the Delta variant. It's the reason the MAJ president is again hammering the point of adequate preparation.
What we really have to focus on now is preparation of the hospital, the healthcare delivery space, in the event that the Omicron results in a big increase in the numbers that are going to be admitted.
Tech billionaire Elon Musk has faced backlash from Chinese social media users after China complained its space station was forced to take evasive action to avoid a collision with his Starlink satellites. China submitted a document earlier this month to the United Nations Space Agency saying that satellites from the Starlink division of Mr. Musk's SpaceX aerospace company had two close encounters with the Chinese space station on the 1st of July and the 21st of October.
The claims have not been verified, but Beijing has complained to the UN Space Agency. Joining us live from Dublin is Leo Enright. He's a space commentator. Good to have you with us. So, is space privatization leading to space tension? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, quite certainly what's happening is that the commercial exploitation of space is now starting to spill over into international diplomacy. The UN Space Committee is a good works agency. It's one of these agencies that sets up schools programs. It organizes for big countries to help the developing world to improve their space return. So it's unprecedented for somebody to use this little agency as a means of making a formal protest. Quite exceptional, but it's also interesting that the Chinese have done this very politely. There is nothing belligerent about the note, and most importantly, they've laid out precisely the incidents that they're concerned about, and just within the last several hours, those incidents have been confirmed independently by international observers.
All right, so you've just mentioned that the incidents have been confirmed. What can the UN Space Agency do? What kind of powers does it have?
Well, that is the problem, Sammy. It is the Wild West up there in space right now, because nobody anticipated that somebody like Elon Musk would launch 2,000 tiny little satellites whirling around the planet in all directions. He's not the only one. The British government is backing a project which launched 36 of these things just yesterday. The Chinese themselves have plans for these things. So I think this Chinese note will get everybody thinking, and really it is undoubtedly time, looking at this objectively, it is undoubtedly time for the international community to start doing some regulating in that wild wilderness up there.
Could this lead to space conflict between nations? Could it drag nation states into it?
Well, there are definitely problems here. This is different from the issue of, for instance, the Chinese or the Russians or the Americans testing, or indeed even the Indians testing anti-satellite systems. These have caused enormous amounts of debris swirling around in space, the most recent by Russia earlier this year. So that's a different problem. The issue here is that these people are unregulated. Elon Musk notoriously dislikes government regulation. He'll be resistant to any new rules, but he has a problem. Elon Musk has just opened an enormous car manufacturing facility in Shanghai, China. He's producing 40,000 cars a month for the European market in China. So he does not want to make the Chinese government angry.
Rescue efforts are still ongoing in Brazil after two dams gave way in the northeastern state of Bahia. It happened after weeks of heavy rains, swamping already swollen local rivers.
Rescuers continued to work around the clock Monday, trying to reach residents still trapped across the northeastern state of Bahia. 72 towns and cities have been flooded by torrential rains that intensified over the Christmas holiday when 2 dams collapsed. In the city of Itabuna, some residents returned to their homes to pick up their belongings through a second-floor window. Emergency workers rescued hundreds in nearby towns, but heavy currents on the swollen rivers continue to complicate the operations.
With this volume of water, it's difficult to maneuver even with jet skis. It has been difficult to reduce the risk for the teams and the victims. Rescue teams had to retreat in certain moments.
The governor of the state of Bahia declared it the worst disaster in the state's history. 500,000 have been affected. At least 16,000 are homeless.
Right now, we are focused on rescuing people and sheltering them, but we are also carrying out technical visits with mayors to identify if it will be necessary to build new houses or repair them, as well as public infrastructure.
Authorities are also monitoring an additional 10 dams for any danger signs and say they will regulate the release of water to avoid flash floods.
We are looking at the forecast for the next few days and the impact it can have and decide which floodgates to open and what volume of water we can release without causing further problems. We need to alleviate areas already flooded without harming others. It's a complex technical decision.
Many have been surprised by the severity of the rain. Authorities blame an increase in the temperature of the Atlantic Ocean mixed with the Niña weather phenomenon for pushing rain patterns north. Some experts say it's a sign of climate change.
This is really the kind of thing we unfortunately expect to happen more and more frequently. According to the last IPCC report, this type of event is already 30% more frequent than in pre-industrial times. So that's pretty much what's happening.
The forecast calls for more rain, but even when that stops, it will take many weeks, if not months, to recover from the devastation.
Sports now. West Indies under-19s have drawn level in their Cricket World Cup warm-up series with South Africa under-19s winning yesterday's second 50-over match at Artiste Vale Ground in St. Vincent, opting to field first. The Windies under-19s bowled out the visitors for 103 in 31.3 overs. Jaden Carmichael took 3 for 25. In reply, the Windies under-19s made 104 for 2 in 23.2 overs, winning by 8 wickets. Matthew Nandu top scored with 42 not out. That included 4 fours. The fourth match of the series, well, the 4-match series is now tied at 1-1, with match number 3 slated for tomorrow. And in some international live cricket action, India doing battle versus South Africa at Centurion. Of course, this is on day 4. India, the scores in the match so far, India 327, and they are currently now 79 for 3. This is after South Africa made 197 in their first innings. So India leading by 209 runs. At the crease right now are the captain Virat Kohli. He's on 18 not out, and with him Cheteshwar Pujara. He is on 12 not out. So India still in a commanding position in this first match against South Africa at Centurion. Of course, we'll keep you updated in our major sports packages here on CBC TV 8. We'll take time now to look at the weather. The temperature on the outside is nice and cool. We've had some nice and cool days recently. Right now it's 26.3 degrees Celsius and fair. It's feeling slightly warmer, the apparent temperature 28 degrees Celsius, and there's been some significant drying out of the atmosphere with the relative humidity standing at 69%. The barometric pressure is 1040 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at 28 kilometers per hour. We'll see a low tide later on in the evening at 28 minutes to 7. Then there will be a high tide later on tonight at 19 minutes to midnight. Those seas have calmed a bit. Smooth to moderate in open water right now, with swells getting up to around the 2-meter mark and expected to increase. Today on the outside, it will be partly sunny. And tonight, it will be mostly clear. And here's a quick look at the international weather forecast. And that's it for your Wednesday edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'm Shane Seeley. Morning Barbados starts now.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Hi there, good morning to you everyone. Good morning and welcome to Wednesday, December the 29th, 2021. It's a good day. It's a good day because it's the birthday of my youngest brother, Julian, who celebrates today. Congratulations to you, Julian. Enjoy your birthday. But good morning, everyone. I'm Pearson Bowen. Thank you for joining us here on Morning Barbados. To those of you at home and those of you everywhere, as always, grateful for your company. Now today, I hope you have your book ready because we are going into chapter 11. And we're taking at that looking at that art and science of delegation. I know. A lot of us tend to think that we're doing it correctly, but sometimes we're not. And so it's an art and it's a science, and Joan Underwood will join us as we look at that very critical skill in management, the art and science of delegation. Stand by for that. We'll also today be meeting the voice behind that summer sensation song, Soca Groupie. Yes, Amber will be here with us today. She's just released a song for the holiday season with her daughter, and so we'll be happy to meet with her a little later on here on Morning Barbados, along with so much more. But let's get started by meeting this young woman who was born in the United Kingdom, came to Barbados when her parents as returning nationals returned home. She's fallen in love with our culture and our environment, and she's crafting her way through it. Her name is Melanie D'Oliveira. Good morning to you, Melanie.
Good morning, Pearson
Good
and listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Not bad, thank you.
Oh, that's good. You're very welcome indeed. How was your holiday season, if you at all celebrate the holidays?
Very busy, but also quite fun and fulfilling because we have family staying. So it's really nice to have a lively household. Mm-hmm. And my son has someone to play with, so he's excited.
At least your son has someone to play with indeed. I love your story. Your story says that you came back to Barbados with your parents and you've fallen in love with our environment, you've fallen in love with our culture. What is it about both of them, the environment and the culture, that made you fall in love?
Well, I guess having not grown up here from a baby, I came here when I was 11. So when I came here, everything was so like different and fresh. I lived in Manchester in the UK, which is very, very urban. There are parks, but it's very, very built up, very, very cold most of the year. And when I came here and you didn't have to wear so many clothes and you could play all day outside, and I had my first taste of Barbadian primary school and the games that you play, marbles, lots of different kinds of skipping, going up in the bush. And for me, being a Bajan, I consider myself a Bajan because I've been here more of my life than I have been in the UK. I love Bajan people. To me, Bajan people are the culture. Their celebrations, their habits, the way that we speak, the things that we do, the way we interact with each other, the way that we stand, the way that we hold things, all of those to me are Bajan culture. And looking back at the Christmas season, the getting ready for the Christmas season, everybody in Swan Street, trying to buy curtains and table mats and floor mats, and I love the energy of it all. Yes. And it's something that I didn't experience when I was a child, or I didn't see that in the UK. But the excitement and the feeling from the people is what I consider Bajan culture. And not only that too, but the way people keep their homes, how everybody tidies up their homes for Christmas, for example, all the lovely gardens. Everybody has to have a lovely garden and garden wall if you can.
Yes.
all of that to me is Bajan culture and more.
That's beautiful. So much so that you love to observe people. And in observing people, you sculpt people. Now, this is interesting.
I do, yes.
So talk to me about that. What is it about the rhythm of people that caused you to think that I could actually draw the lines, I could actually do things with this?
Well, I think I always like observing people and also animals and flowers, anything that I really find interesting. And although I've moved now, I used to live on a main road, which is not really a main road because I live in the countryside in rural St. Philip. But I was on the path to the shop, so I'd see lots of people passing by, and I would watch them sometimes or see them passing through my window. And I also see people interact with each other when they're having conversations outside. Maybe they're having a gossip. And I watch them and I think what they're saying or what they're thinking, and I look quite often at what they're wearing because, you know, sometimes you have, and this is the subject of the things that I'm making now, some quite voluptuous ladies with some very, very tight clothes.
Yes.
And wearing them proudly. And I admire them because I haven't got the courage to do that. I'm quite conservative in my choice. But I find all that really exciting and intriguing. So I'm trying to convey that in my work at the moment.
So here we are watching some of your work on the screen. Now this looks so real life. So real life. And it's just uncanny how you're able to bring the humanity, almost the living pieces of art of our people.
Thank you.
What is it that you work with?
I work with clay. I work with local terracotta clay or red clay as we call it, and also sometimes I use white clay, which comes from the UK, according to what kind of finish that I want to achieve. And I recently started sculpting figures. Before I was doing a lot of sheep and other stuff like that, and fruit and things. And I didn't know if I could quite do them, but people say that I'm actually making these people look alive. Yes. I work from photographs, but I do try to convey some kind of story in the piece. So like the tilt of a head or the gesture of a hand or an arm, or the way that some person is standing tends to convey like a story in the background, but you have to think what the story is, what the person's thinking, what are they saying, why are they standing like that, why are they dressed like that, where are they going. So I like to try to convey all of that in my pieces.
I'm telling you, these look so alive, it's just not funny at all. You're really, really quite good at what you're doing. This skill of yours, how was it honed? Was it honed from school, or is this something you stumbled upon and realized how good you are?
Well, when I was growing up, I always liked making and drawing and anything crafty and art. I thought everybody was like me. I thought everybody liked doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Until quite recently, I teach art at a local primary school. And in seeing young children and how they approach art and their creativity, I realized that there's some of them that are really, really passionate about art. And I identify with them. I always loved arts and crafts. I was always making something. I would get excited by a new drawing book or new crayons or a new ball of wool, any kind of arts and crafts. And then at secondary school, I got introduced to ceramics or pottery in third form. And I fell in love. And I did CX, I did A level, and I focused almost exclusively on pottery. And then I went and actually did my degree in ceramics.
Wow.
And since then, I have taught and worked in the background, tried to get a balance between the two. And as time has gone on, my skills have changed. They've improved in some areas and evolved in other areas.
Well, you've really taken this skill quite seriously, so much so that you're actually now operating your business. So for someone watching today who looks at it like me and thinks that this is so great, the art that you're doing, how can we have a piece? How can we have several pieces?
You can message me on Instagram on Dolivera Ceramics, which is DOLIVEIRA Ceramics. You can call me on 266-1644 and we can discuss a piece. I make in the background all the time, so I have pieces being made all of the time. I have a few collectors that quite often will buy or find out what I'm doing. Right. So if anyone's interested, and they can call me. I also work to commission, so if somebody would like me to do something, more personal, I can do that as well.
So if I were to commission you, from the point of commission, how long would it take before you get the finished product?
Quite a long time, because I work very slowly, and the details are, I like to have a lot of detail in my work.
Yes.
And I'm not happy unless there's lots of detail. So I can take, for a smaller piece with less detail, probably a month to make, and sometimes it can take about 3 months to make. And then because it's pottery, there's a lot of drying time involved. So you can finish making a piece after about 2 weeks, but then you have to wait 2 weeks for it to dry. Then you have to fire it in a pottery kiln, and then you have to paint it and fire it again. Sometimes you have to fire it 3 times. So according to the complexity of the piece, the size of the piece, larger pieces sometimes require more drying time as well. It's not like a painting. When you finished it, it's done, and then you can deliver it to the customer. You have a lot of time after you finish making, and you have to make it in a lot of stages.
Right, right. This is great. I mean, our social media is a buzz with you. We've got comments coming in already about your awesome work. And so this is such really, really good work. Is it? I've never seen it anywhere. Are people really buying this and placing it in their places?
They are.
This is
and sometimes I get pictures of people, and sometimes I get a bit of the work in people's houses, and sometimes I get to actually go and see people, see where people have put them in their own houses personally.
Right.
It tends to be collectors, artists who really appreciate one-off pieces. So not something that somebody else will have, because all these pieces are original. So there are no other pieces like them.
Do you build
Each
them
piece is totally different.
Do you craft and sculpt to scale as well?
I haven't made any life-size pieces. No. That's quite a that would be quite an undertaking.
Yes. But do you feel yourself
I like
inclined?
maybe things that you could put in your house.
Right. But do you feel yourself inclined to take on that challenge where you do it to scale, which is a little bit larger than the ornamental pieces?
I would. Yes, I would. I have made some larger pieces, mainly sculptural vases.
Yes.
At the moment, because I have limited time, I work early in the mornings and at weekends and holidays. So I might not necessarily have the time or the continuity of time to devote to such a large piece. So those are my constraints at the moment. But I wouldn't rule it out for the future. It'd be a really challenging project, I think.
Do you at all feel compelled to forget everything else and just do this?
Yes.
So when are you going to do it?
If I don't make for like 2 days or a day, I start to get grumpy and kind of like something doesn't feel right.
Yes.
I have to make it. It's a passion within me that if I'm not making, I'm not feeling like if I'm a whole person. And sometimes I would just like to drop everything and just stay in my studio all day and just have food breaks and bathroom breaks. And I would love the freedom to do that, but I have a family.
But life is life, yes. Life is life.
Life is life, yes.
And it goes
but that would be
sometimes.
the ideal, to just make all day, every day.
This is great. I love your passion. I love your energy. I love your creativity. The eye that you have for bringing to life through your sculpting and through the ceramics and the clay that you use, everything you see around you that tells the story of the people and the places and the things of Barbados. And so again, remind folks how we can contact you and how we can get your pieces. Remind us.
Okay, so you can contact me through D'Oliveira Ceramics, and D'Oliveira is spelled Doliveira, and you can also call me on 266-1644. 266-1644.
Melanie, it is my immense pleasure meeting you this morning. You are doing fantastic work. I have never seen this kind of work on the island. I've never seen it. You are the first for me. And so I am so proud of you, and I'm very pleased. So I wish you well. She's the owner of D'Oliveira Ceramics. Her name is Melanie D'Oliveira, and she's encouraging all of you to contact her to see if you get a copy. Commission a piece if you have to commission some as well. And I'm telling you, it's going to be stunning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All the best.
Thank you, Pearson. Thank you, everyone.
You're very welcome indeed. You're welcome indeed. That's great work. Great work, I'm telling you. 15 minutes now to go to 7 o'clock. We'll take a break here. We're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So it's 13 minutes now to go to 7 o'clock. The doctor's on the line indeed. Our urologist, Dr. Paul Rouse, is going to join us now. Good morning to you, Dr. Rouse.
Good morning, Barbados. Thanks again for having me.
Now, I've been practicing the word percutaneous nephrolithotomy. Have I got it right?
That's correct.
All right,
yes,
great.
Correct.
Fantastic. Now, the question in everybody's mind is, what on heaven's earth is that?
So, percutaneous nephrolithotomy, or we keep it short and call it PCNL, is a way to deal with kidney stones. The reason why I thought I'd revisit this topic, we did it a little bit earlier in the year, is because recently I've had a few patients who with quite large kidney stones, and understandably they're quite scared about surgery. So if we start the presentation, so there's several different ways to deal with kidney stones. And this cartoon is just showing you a typical presentation. The patient here has a large stone in the left kidney. That little white tube that you're seeing there is a stent. So this patient more than likely would have presented with pain, did relevant investigations, showed that their kidney was blocked by this quite large kidney stone, as you can see there. And as a temporary measure, sometimes we have to put a tube directly into the kidney called a nephrostomy, or in this case, we place a stent from below to relieve the pain, get the patient well, and then we can always schedule surgery for a later date. Next slide. And this is what we used to do in the past. And sometimes we still have to do it on occasions. Here is what we call an open nephrolithotomy. All nephrolithotomy is our fancy Latin term for kidney, and lithotomy is stone, and otomy is a cut. So way back in the days when you used to do Latin, so open nephrolithotomy is how we used to do with kidney stones in the past. As you can see there, there's quite a large incision. Actually, this is quite a small incision. This is a different technique called a mini loin incision that I used to do while I was in Trinidad under the service of Dr. Gertz there. He's who taught me this technique and things. So even with this relatively small cut there, you can see that's about 3-4 inches. And as you notice there on the right-hand side, quite a lot of blood loss. So that's the tube there, the suction bottle, showing that with open surgery, one of the major problems is blood loss with that surgery, and hence understandably why a lot of patients were reluctant, and why surgeons as well were reluctant to do this procedure, because of the significant risk to patients. If we move on to the next slide, please. So with the advancement of technology, etc., we're then able to then develop this technique of percutaneous nephrolithotomy, where we literally put a small tube, or what we call a nephrostomy, directly into the kidney and relieve and deal with the kidney stone at the same time during that very small incision. Sometimes initially these incisions were as large as 1 centimeter, but now we've gone all the way down to what we call a mini PCNL, where the incision is probably only about 5 or so centimeters in diameter, and now there's even ultra mini PCNL, and this is all being possible due to several advances in technology. As you can see there on the left, it's all done under X-ray guidance using something called a C-arm. We put some dye or contrast in the kidney, which allows us to see exactly where we're going, and then we can make a direct puncture into the appropriate part of the kidney. In this case, there's a stone in the lower pole of the kidney, and you can see there coming on the bottom right hand of the screen there, needle or the that we're using to create that access into the kidney. Next slide, please. And there's lots of different technologies that have come on to that allow us to do this. We have miniature lithotripters. So if we go to the next slide, please, we can see how we can break the stone up using very small devices. And now available as well, we also have the lasers, which is kind of almost standard nowadays, where we break the stone up using very intense light energy, or what we call laser energy. What I'm trying to show you here is how we make that very, very small incision into the flank over in the kidney area. You can see there like it's a very fine needle that we place directly into the kidney. And then, next slide please, we then dilate up that tract and we place what we call a sheath. I use the Amplac system, and you can see there that's after we've created the tract, after we've made a successful puncture into the kidney, we then dilate up that tract. In this case, this is one of my earlier cases. That tube is about 24 French, so that would be just about 7-8 millimeters in diameter. And we then do all the surgery through that tract. So no more this huge cut from in your flank, and sometimes even in those cases, sometimes we even had to remove a rib. So now we can do all that same surgery through this very small incision. And in some cases with patients with very big stones, what we call a staghorn calculus, we can do that using sometimes two tracts. I've done that a few times. Not so brave to do 3 tracts. I think that's pushing it a bit. But 1 or 2 tracts and remove the stone quite safely and quite readily for the patient. Next slide, please. So I really wanted to let persons know here in Barbados that we have this technology available here, and not to be afraid to have their kidney stones dealt with. Because now we can do this using PCNL. You come in the day of the procedure of surgery. You do spend 2 nights in hospital. If you recover very well, you can even go home a little bit faster. That last slide there was just showing you how the equipment we use, a nephroscope to look directly into the kidney, and using a little jackhammer on the right hand side, in the surgeon's right hand there is the nephroscope, and off in the background but not shown very well, we do this all on the screen, so you can see it on the stack system or the endoscopic system, and we see the stone under direct vision. We break it up, and then we use some graspers and remove the stone fragments. That's one technique. That's the technique I prefer, to fracture the stone into several pieces and take them out en bloc, so that way I know that hopefully if I just break it into 3 or 4 big pieces, then I can remove those directly without leaving a lot of fragments behind. Some of the newer techniques, especially with the laser, we use, because the fibers are very, very small, and we're trying to create a smaller tract so that you have less injury to the kidney, less injury to the patient. They dust the stone, and then you have a lot of little fine fragments that they pass out. I do prefer the technique of breaking it into a few larger fragments and then taking those out directly. And I'm hoping we will be able to show you the videos now to show you how this is exactly done. And the beauty of this technique is that once it's done successfully, so this is what I'm trying to show here. This is where I'm using a pneumatic lithotripter, and you can see those are the fragments of the stone there that after you break it up, it's like a little miniature jackhammer. This is good for when I have good access directly onto the kidney, onto the stone, and the pneumatic lithotripter is very efficient. Knock on wood. I've had a 100% success rate so far here in Barbados in terms of breaking the stone. I wouldn't say I've quite got 100% with getting all the fragments out. So unfortunately, sometimes you get 1 or 2 fragments that do float around and go to other parts of the kidney and can be a little bit difficult to retrieve. But the success rate accepted internationally is well over 90%, and certainly my success rate is that way as well. But now also we have the laser available, so we do have these very difficult, complex kidney stones, and now with using the flexible scopes, we can then look at different parts of the kidney and retrieve all these kidney fragments. And what I'm showing here in this little video clip is how that stone is removed. I'm using that's a triradiate grasper. You're taking the larger fragments out. I think this patient had quite a large stone, a 3 to 4 centimeter stone. And we just break it up into a few larger pieces, and we take them out under direct vision. So that's the beauty of this technique. It's all done under direct vision. You see the stone, you break it up, you remove the fragments. As opposed to some other techniques that are available out there. I'm sure people would have seen things like shockwave lithotripsy, where you use these shockwaves, this machine to generate shockwaves to break the stone into small pieces. Yes, that is effective. Yes, that is acceptable in some cases, but the success rate of that technique is quite low, 60 to 70%, depending on where, how hard the stone, how easily it breaks, and then you have to pass those fragments. And certainly for quite large stones, it's probably not the best technique. And because I work primarily privately, you want a technique that gives you almost 100% success rate. And certainly with PCNL, we're batting well over 90% in terms of success with one procedure, single procedure. And the beauty of PCNL technique is that if needed, it can be readily repeated, as opposed to, as you can appreciate, with an open technique, an open nephrolithotomy. When you make this huge incision, you're going to have a lot of scarring and a lot of damage to the kidney as a result. And hence, if you have to do repeated open procedures, not exactly the best thing in the world for the patient. So there's why we have developed these more modern techniques, which are available here in Barbados. So I really wanted to reassure the public that we have these techniques available here. It's being offered, and therefore patients should feel less scared about having their kidney stones dealt with.
Boy, I sat here and I cringed a few times, quite frankly, just looking at it, but it's good news, and recovery, what about recovery time thereafter?
So recovery is very fast. I'm not sure if you have the last clip there of a patient I have. Within a day, the patients are up and moving around, and as you can see here in this the clip, the patient kindly sent us a clip of them when they're at home 1 week later, returning to almost all their normal physical activities. So that's the beauty again of PCNL. It is a very, although we call it minimally invasive surgery, I don't like to use that term because it is actually quite an invasive procedure. We're literally making a hole directly into your kidney. So there is some real significant risk. And knock on wood, we haven't had any major complications with this technique. But in theory, they are available. There is possible, especially bleeding. So all patients will have to have some blood available at the time of the operation. Again, knock on wood, fortunately, over the last 2 years I've been back, I haven't had to transfuse anyone following PCNL, which will attest to hopefully the very low complication rates that we're having with the technique. So it's about rapid recovery.
Right.
Unfortunately, kidney stone formers do have a 50% chance, if they just continue with their normal activities, of forming another stone within the next 5 years. So therefore, you can see we need to do techniques that, because we know, unfortunately, for whatever biological reason, they're predisposed to having stones. So there's a real chance of having a stone in the future. So therefore, you need to do as minimally invasive a technique as possible, should they need further treatment in the future.
The human being has 2 kidneys. If it presents in one, can I just say, don't take that one out, I'll just live on the one?
No. If you believe in God, the good Lord has given us 2 kidneys for a reason. We can't donate kidneys, so although we can theoretically say that you only probably need about a quarter of your overall kidney function to survive. That's why persons can safely donate a kidney once you're fit and well, and live a normal, healthy life. We don't know what the future holds, so therefore we try to preserve. Once your kidney is functioning, we would preserve that kidney. It's only in very, very severe cases when your kidney function, we would do something called a renogram to assess if you think that your kidney is not working very well, to assess your kidney function. If your kidney function is pretty poor, certainly less than, if that kidney is only contributing 10% of your overall kidney function, we'd probably say that kidney is probably best removed. It's better to remove that kidney rather than trying to save that kidney. But certainly if you have a reasonable kidney function, once it's above about 20 or so %, I would certainly preserve that kidney. I wouldn't remove that kidney. But very, very rarely, yes, sometimes unfortunately we have to remove the entire kidney. But that would be quite the severe cases. Recurrent stone disease, usually unfortunately persons with diabetes or immunocompromised where infection has taken hold and really destroyed the kidney. That is probably the only indications where we would really remove the kidney because of kidney stones. But now with PCNL technique, quite frankly, I would, actually recently I had a patient with very, very poor kidney function, down to about 22% overall. I'd still offered PCNL because the beauty of it is quite minimally invasive. Within 2 days, that patient was home. And we were able to preserve the kidney. Because that patient had underlying comorbidities as well, you want to preserve as much kidney function, as many nephrons as we would say, so that should any problems happen in the future, they have at least a second kidney there just in case.
Would the procedure you just explained to us, would that be done in your office or would it have to be done in hospital?
No, that one will be done in hospital. You have to go off to sleep, and that's done under general anesthetic. As you can see, there's quite a lot of equipment involved in performing the procedure. Although, as I said, although it's done through a very, very tiny incision, that is because of all the equipment that we use. So we use C-arm guidance, we use endoscopes to see everything. We use a lithotripter, or either it's a mechanical lithotripter or laser machine. So it's quite a lot, and we need to lie there still for at least a good. Depending on how soft the stone is, the procedure can be done pretty fast. If it breaks quickly, within half an hour, it can be done. But sometimes you do get that tricky stone that you can spend an hour or two breaking it up. And then again, it's about access as well. So if you have multiple stones, nobody's kidney is the same. So some people have kidneys and you have to go around corners just to get to the stone. That's why you need to be off to sleep to allow us to do that procedure safely for you. But there, unfortunately, the type of disease I've seen here so far is usually, unfortunately, quite advanced, quite large stones. But with the mini PCNL and ultra mini PCNL, people are advocating that you can actually go home the same day. So you can come and have that procedure done and you go home, because with those techniques, the incision is down to about 3-4 millimeters, very, 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 very tiny incision, right directly onto the stone. In those techniques, you use a laser machine, you laser the stone directly, and then we put sealants in the track. So we put something like flow seal or Surge's cellulose, oxidized cellulose in the track to obliterate the track, reduce bleeding. And yes, in those cases, patients potentially can go home the same day. However, the type of disease I see here, I haven't had any patients that are that suitable for at this point in time. And quite frankly, now with the quite powerful lasers that we have available, we wouldn't actually use that technique. I mean, if you have a stone that small that I'm thinking about doing an ultra mini PCNL for, I would just go from below with a flexible ureteroscope, laser that stone, get a very good result, and you go home at the same time, and a lot less morbidity rather than putting a hole directly in your kidney. But we have to take every patient on merit, and therefore actually sometimes we have to combine techniques. So we might have to go PCNL to get to certain areas of the kidney, and from below with the flexible ureteroscope and the laser to get to other parts of the kidney and deal with the stones in that way.
Very quickly, pain management post-surgery. What's the process?
Again, because as I said, it's very, very tiny, small incision. Pain is a lot better. A lot of patients are actually say afterwards they're very surprised at how comfortable they are, which is what we want. We want them to be pain-free. So at the time of the operation, we put local anesthetic in the wound, in the planned track, something like Marcaine, which we give relief for several hours. And most patients would be managed with paracetamol, Voltaren after the procedure. They're up, they're moving around, and usually you just need to continue that for a few days. I usually tell patients to have that religiously for the first 3 to 5 days after the operation, just so that they remain totally pain-free. But the beauty is you're up, you're moving around by day 1 after the operation, usually within day 2, all being well, you're going home.
All right. Dr. Paul Rouse, thank you. We've got to leave it right there. Thank you so much again for joining us and talking us through.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, you're very welcome indeed. All the best.
Okay. Good morning, Barbados.
Good morning indeed. Morning Barbados continues after this.
Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Time for us to take another look at the news. Once again, here is Shane Seeley.
Thank you, Pearson. Here's your 7 a.m. headline news. Barbadians caught off guard, caught by surprise really, with calling of general elections slated for January the 19th. Our Crystal Hoyt, she hit the streets and filed this report.
Barbadians will be going to the polls in a matter of weeks, as Prime Minister Mia Motley announced that elections will be held on January 19th. On the ground, many are shocked by the early announcement, as elections were constitutionally due in 2023.
So it was a bit shocking, obviously, to hear it. I don't think the opposition party will be ready enough in time to deal with it, that's the honest truth.
Really shocked because early it's only 3.5 years, right? And usually it's 5 years. I'm hoping that the Prime Minister they do the whole 5 years, right? Because she's doing a good job. You get me? So I hope now that she'll bring back.
The other party's not prepared as yet. So clearly she has a clear advantage.
She reserves the right to make the call whenever she cares to, right? And we think that she's the best leader. As a matter of fact, there is no other.
What do you think the outcome will be?
The outcome? I don't know what the outcome. I will hope the outcome is the best for everybody that live in Barbados. You know? That is the honest truth. That everybody could live here. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. But the lady had a fight. She fight well.
Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
In response, the opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley does not agree with the timing of Barbados' upcoming general elections. During a news conference last evening, he questioned the rush for the polls a year and a half before they are constitutionally due. Bishop Atherley calls the move callous and reckless, noting that the country is still battling the COVID-19 pandemic. He still says he's maintaining a similar position to the one he held for the 2020 St. George by-election.
It was not necessary to have the by-election then. It was a matter of political convenience for the party, the government. It is not necessary to have a general election now 1 year and a half before its constitutionally due date. In the middle of a pandemic, when we're facing down the prospects of having the latest of the variants being present among us, and the government really should tell us if that variant is already here.
Meanwhile, the COVID-19 positivity rate in Barbados has climbed in recent days and is now around the 15% mark, as the numbers of new cases are again over 100. The Best dos Santos Public Health Lab identified 112 new cases, 50 males and 62 females, from the 705 tests conducted on Monday. Of the new cases, 14 individuals are under the age of 18, while there are 111 people in isolation facilities and 874 others in home isolation. The road at Dark Hole in St. Joseph has been reopened. The Attorney General, Dale Marshall, has been speaking about the situation, and he says the Ministry of Public Works responded rather quickly.
They were on the job first thing this morning, and by 3 o'clock this afternoon they were able to have the issue completely resolved. I wouldn't say it was an easy fix. I don't think anything in the Scotland district is going to be an easy fix, but they were able to identify the problem very, very quickly and put the solution in place, and they spent the entire day putting in material, compacting, putting in more material and compacting. And we're in a position to reopen that road from 3 o'clock today.
A part of the road at Dark Hole reportedly collapsed, forcing motorists there to find an alternate route. And that's your 7 a.m. headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. It's back to you, Pearson.
Thank you, Shane. 7:10, a break, and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So let's get to it. Our Crumbs question of the day. Time for you to get cracking now by calling me on 228-5562 or 228-5563. I have a question for you. Yes, indeed, it is time for the Crumbs Bakery question of the day. Today, call me 228-5562 or 228-5563. I think is a very simple question for you to answer. That question is, this former CBC radio morning show host has a name that sounds like a victory. Simple Simon made the pieman. This former CBC radio morning show host has a name that sounds like a victory. Whose name is it? Call me now and tell me. Give me the name. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Answer correctly and you're winning today with Crumbs Bakery and our Crumbs Bakery question of the day. This former CBC radio morning show host has a name that sounds like a victory. A victory. I almost gave it away. Lord knows I almost gave it away. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, person.
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad, just a little hoarse.
What happened to you?
I just getting over a cold.
Oh dear, oh dear. Did you have the test?
That's the question.
No, I could give you a chance. Were you scared? Were you scared when you realized you had a little bit of a cold?
Yes, I was.
What did you do about your little bit of a cold?
I drank ginger, turmeric, honey, and a lot of ginger tea, inhaling and stuff. So it just
all of that. Did you go down to the gymnasium? Did you go down to the gymnasium?
No.
You're frightened, eh?
Because everything is not COVID.
I agree. I agree. But you didn't go.
I was
You did not go because you were afraid.
I was not really afraid. Okay, I was scared as hell.
See? I told you so. Look at you. I wouldn't blame you. That's the truth. All right. What's your answer for me?
I think my answer is one of the best radio announcers I used to hear.
Really? Who might that be?
By the name of Vic Rooster.
That name that sounds like a victory.
Yeah.
You think so?
I was
the late Buddy Boy. You heard that?
Yeah.
You know what that says?
That's a song of not victory. That's a song of losing. But anyhow, happy New Year to you.
You too, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you. She's a good sport. I hope you get over your cold very, very soon. Yeah, I know. These are scary times for a number of people, but a diagnosis is just a diagnosis. You'll get over it. 228-5562 or 228-5563. The question is right there on your screen. This former CBC radio morning show host has a name that sounds like a victory. Good morning to you. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm well, thank you so much for asking. What parish are you watching from?
St. Philip.
St. Philip, what's your answer for me?
Win calendar.
Don't ask me questions. St. Philip, what's your ansser for me?
Win calendar.
Absolutely right, St. Philip. Well done indeed. What is it about the question that led you to think it was Win calendar?
That it sounds like a victory. That aspect of it.
But you know, the lady just said Vic Bruce, so that sounds like a victory too, doesn't it?
No. No, it doesn't. That's it. But win is win.
Win is win. What's your first name? What's your first name?
Susan.
Hello, Susan. Thank you so much. Congratulations to you, Susan. Stay on the phone. We'll take some more information from you. You're so right when you said Win calendar as your answer. And so today, she's our winner in our Crumbs question of the day. We'll have, God be it God's will, we'll have another question for you in the Crumbs Bakery. God's question of the day. We're coming back after this with more.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
17.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. There's something happening tomorrow. Tomorrow is December the 30th. Yes, there's going to be the launch of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in Motion. And so to join us to talk a little bit more about what we can expect today, is the chair of the Public Awareness Subcommittee, Dr. Denise Charles, our friend. Good morning to you, Dr. Charles.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you doing?
I am well. Your face is shining bright today. It is beautiful to see. How was your Christmas?
I'm still enjoying Christmas. Remember, there are 12 days of Christmas, and I like to lap it all up. I'm very big on Christmas, so I'm very much still enjoying the season and looking forward, God's willing, to the new year.
Amen to that indeed. But here it is. Well, we're looking forward to the new year. We're still enjoying the Christmas season. We got work to still do, right? And so tomorrow is the launch of this biggie, Intangible Cultural Heritage in Motion. A lot, but what does it mean to people?
Well, intangible cultural heritage is actually very, very critical for us at this juncture, I think, in our development as a nation, Barbados. We are so thankful that only very recently we were made a republic. And intangible cultural heritage is that very significant arm that is very much needed at this time in terms of our understanding who we are. And this particular program is happening under a theme, Know Your Culture, Know Yourself. That is our slogan for the ICH campaign. So you're going to be hearing a lot going forward about ICH, what ICH is all about, what it means to us as a nation, what it should mean to us. UNESCO has a 2003 convention which was really designed to help us as nations preserve our intangible cultural heritage. And when we hear culture, I think everybody seems to know what that is, or they have an idea what it is. But when we hear ICH, people may not be quite au fait with what that means. And I think we want to be able to unpack that for the public. We want every Barbadian, those who live here, we want them to understand what ICH is all about and what it means to us as a nation and why we need to become so connected to it if you're really going to understand who we are as Bajans.
When we're talking intangible, we can see the tangible. We know the coal pot, we know those things that we can actually touch and feel as we touch. But there are things about our culture that we cannot define by our naked eye. And so is that what we're talking about here?
Yes, we're talking about the knowledge that we have. We're talking about the skills. We're talking about the practices, the representations, the rituals. And even though there's that division between the tangible and the intangible, there are still several links between the two. Because, for example, you have the chattel house, which is tangible because it's an actual thing, it's a house. But then you have an entire practice behind it in terms of being able to pick down your house from one location and take it to the next, and even the story surrounding that whole initiative. So when we think about the intangible elements of our culture, we're thinking about the representations, we're thinking about the knowledge and the skills, the practices that are the foundation to the things that we do, and even the foundation to the things that are tangible that we see.
So who collates all of this information so that we are sure that we're able to capture all of the essence of who we are?
Well, this information really is residing in the knowledge of regular Barbadians, ordinary Barbadians. We do have libraries. Obviously, we have our Division of Culture. We have the National Cultural Foundation as bodies that work very hard to help preserve this sense of our intangible cultural heritage. But the intangible cultural heritage of a nation is really owned by the people of the nation. And that is why we are bringing this to the public, and we want the public to understand what ICH is all about. Yes, we do want to have formal programs in schools, and we do have that going on. We have these partnerships with the NCF, where there's going to be the teaching of Wari and Potter, and we have the Steel Orchestra, we have the Tuck Band, we have the Land Shape. We have these things that are ongoing in our schools, or are about to start in our schools. But we want this to be something that is owned by every Bajan. You know, you have the grandmother in the village, or in your own home, the person that was around for a really long time, who can tell stories and pass down traditions. That is what ICH is all about. And there are 5 domains covered under ICH, and one of them, a very critical one, is the whole idea of oral traditions.
You have what exactly where I wanted to go next, Dr. Denise Charles. The art of storytelling. You know, for me, growing up as a little boy, I spent a lot of time in my grandmother's kitchen. And you know, as little, because we lived next door to Mum, and we would go over there and we would spend the time, we would pick rice and we would be talking or singing, and in all of this, stories are told. And we got to know the stories of our ancestors. We got to know the stories of people and places. It's so fascinating.
That's right.
And I know it's a thing about our Barbadian culture that we've lost, but I'd love to see it come back again.
That's right. And the thing is, we don't want to lose these elements of who we are. And because we live in a fast-paced, you know, industrialized world now, we're in the 4th industrial revolution, there's the digital all around us. We're talking a lot about globalization and being on a global stage. I think it is very critical at this juncture of our development as a nation that we really seek to strategically preserve that sense of who we are as Barbadians, and that must be passed down through oral traditions and through stories. And we talk a lot about our young people, and we express sometimes, the older generation expresses a lot of sometimes dissatisfaction with our youth and with some of the things that they do, or with the sense that they have forgotten who we are as people. But those of us in the older generation, and those even older than myself, all of us, we are responsible for passing those traditions down. We are responsible for telling those stories. And once we do that successfully, then I think our culture has a very good chance of being preserved. And that is what the UNESCO Convention is all about. Because we want to help, I think it is designed to help nations not only preserve their sense of identity in terms of the various cultural domains that are involved in the ICH umbrella, but really it is about helping them also be geared towards a nation's sustainable development. Because, you know, we tend to romanticize the past a lot.
Yes.
We you know, we are very caught up in nostalgia, and especially like a time like this with Christmas and Independence just gone, there's a lot of nostalgia. But we don't just want to romanticize the past. We want to see it as something that is living and breathing, and that can push us as a nation towards greater development.
Girl, you got me good. So let's watch what's going to be happening tomorrow and how everybody can be a part of it.
Well, tomorrow there's a program at the Barbados Museum, as you said, ICH in Motion, which is a kind of small launch of ICH. We're going to be doing something bigger a bit later into the new year. But this is a small launch at this juncture to kind of bring it to the public. There will be spoken word by Cindy Celeste. There's going to be a stick licking demonstration. And I am sure that this is going to be on all the social media platforms so that individuals can follow it. But this is just the start. And going forward into the new year, we are going to be hearing a lot more about ICH. We're going to be hearing a lot more about the involvement of at the community level, because that is what it's about. We're going to be having some ICH ambassadors, some youth who are going to be going around in the communities and promoting and pushing this idea with our slogan, know your culture, know yourself. Because we believe when we know who we are, when we know where we've come from, when we understand our inheritance, because that is really what heritage is all about. It is about that inheritance that has been passed down throughout the generations. And when we understand how it dovetails so well with all of our festivals, with our religious rituals, our practices, the art that we perform, the things that we make with our hands, the foods that we cook, you know, even our use of herbs and so on, all of this is wrapped up in ICH. And when we understand that this is about life as we know it as Barbadians, then we can all become a part of it and own it, and not see it as something just for the officials or the educators or those involved in the Ministry of Culture, but really something that must be owned by all of us as Barbadians.
So, folks, it only starts tomorrow, but it really lives in each of us every single day. And so there'll be opportunities for all of us to engage with the intangible cultural heritage of this beautiful island of ours. Now, tomorrow is going to be, you said it's going to be streamed online, so we can watch it, we can be a part of it. If there is anybody who wants to attend in person, given protocols, can they do so? Or no,
Yeah,
we
I
shut down
believe
right
so.
now?
I believe it is something that is open for people if they're interested in
All
passing by at the museum.
Great. So it sounds like I am fascinated by this already, Dr. Denise Charles. Now, you know me. I'm going to invite you back again sometime real soon so we can continue this journey through our
That's
intangible
okay.
cultural heritage. And I can't wait to see how it
That's right.
blossoms and develops indeed. And it's such a fascinating thing that each of us is going to equally find fascinating, I believe. And we begin to tell our stories and hear our stories and to know deeper who we are as we get a greater sense of awareness of who we are and we become better people. So thank you for joining us this morning.
And we have been running some programs on CBC every Monday evening at 6. So for those of you who may not have seen them before, they have been running at 6 some short documentaries looking at various elements of ICH.
Okay. Maybe I'm one who's missed it. So I will thank you for telling me about that at 6 on CBC TV8. Dr. Denise Charles, thank you so much as always. Great to see you. Of course, listen out for our call. We'll be talking some more.
Thank you so much, Pearson. Have a fantastic week.
Likewise, indeed. Morning Barbados continues after this, and get your books ready. Yeah, this is where we're going next after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Twenty-nine and a half minutes now to go to 8 o'clock. You see that book that just flashed across your screen? That book sits by my side every single day because in it are nuggets of truth that will help you manage the people and yourself as well. We'll get to processes a little later on. Now, that book is written by this lovely lady, Joan Underwood. Joan, good morning to you. Oh,
Good
Joan.
morning,
There you are.
Pearson. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas.
I think I did. I hope you did too.
I did. And so let me begin by apologizing. I'm having major connectivity challenges this morning. So I apologize for the quality of my connection.
No, that's lovely. Thank you so much for that. So, folks, we're going to stick with Joan nevertheless. Joan, we're down to a big chapter. This is such a huge turning point for a lot of people because oftentimes, you know, you sit in a place of management and the chapter begins by saying this, that according to studies, employees in major corporations think that their bosses routinely do work that could be effectively delegated to other junior employees. And that, in a lot of cases, is very, very true. So why does it happen that way?
You know, it's ironic. And the second stat that I put with that, so employees are saying that as many as 78% of managers do work they shouldn't be doing. At the same time, the managers, 66% of managers are saying they wish they could pass off some of the things that they're doing.
Yes.
So if the employees think, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, And if you yourself think, I shouldn't, then why is it still happening? And it's because there are a number of barriers to delegation. And some of those barriers are legitimate, others is just us needing to get for ourselves. So, for example, sometimes we think, oh, they can't do it as well as I can do it.
Yes.
Right? And that might be true. But the thing is, if you never coach them into doing the task, how is that problem ever going to be resolved? Another thing we say to ourselves, oh, I can do it a lot faster. Yes, initially. But again, if you coach your people, train them up, they will go through a learning curve. They won't be as fast as you when they start, but they will get there. But if you keep hoarding the tasks, they will never learn and they will never get faster and better at it. But in case you're not concerned about their growth, which unfortunately is sometimes the case, think about your own growth and development, because you can't climb to the top of the ladder if you're still holding on to the bottom. So you have to let go of some tasks in order for you to move up the ladder and take on more strategic tasks.
You know, that's not easy, letting go and taking on other strategic tasks, because again, it comes down to my belief whether or not it is going to be adequately achieved, whether they have the competency and the skill set, whether they're willing to do it. And all of this links to the previous chapter we discussed last week as well. This task might be way too important for me to let go. So what do I do?
Okay, so absolutely. There's some tasks that are too important and that you ought not to delegate. They can be based on the nature of the confidentiality, based on the strategic nature of it. But we need to check ourselves. And remember, we talked about self-awareness way back in the first chapter. If you think that everything is too important for you to delegate, then the problem is with you. Because I don't care who you are. Everything you do isn't that important that it cannot be delegated. So we really need to be honest with ourselves in terms of why exactly am I holding on to this task? Do I have a legitimate reason for doing so, or is it about my ego? Is it about me thinking that I'm indispensable or wanting others to perceive me as being indispensable? Or is it that as a manager, I am failing in my obligation to develop others? And what is leadership about? Leadership is about getting things done with and through others. So if you never engage other people, can you really say that you're leading? And you mentioned what we spoke about last week in terms of follower readiness. Another thing that you touched on is trust. And remember, we looked at the elements of trust. Competency is one. So we are responsible for grooming all people. I'm not saying delegate to somebody who isn't ready, because when we looked at situational leadership last week, we said persons need to be both able and willing before you delegate to them. So it's a large part of the responsibility for getting them there rests with you as their manager, as their leader.
Sometimes we use the skill of delegation as a way of dumping what we're supposed to be doing onto other people, or we use it to micromanage the process. And you've been able to list it out in the book as well, some of those pitfalls that we take. When it comes to the dump and run, we sometimes wait until the very last, and I'm saying we because I sit in a position of such, we sometimes wait until the very last minute to assign the task. It's, oh my goodness, it's that time, so I'm going to pass it on to Derry. And that's what we do. And that's not fair.
Absolutely. So the two ends of the spectrum. Two ends of the spectrum, you have the dump and run, and you have the micromanager. And neither of those two people will be anybody's favorite. So the dump and run. A lot of dump and run people, they delegate tasks that they don't want to do themselves, you know. So those, you know, mundane, boring, you know, the things that drain your soul. Oh, you put it off, you know you have a report to do, you hate doing the report, you leave it to the 11th hour and then dump it on someone and expect them to do the grunt work and then deliver it to you in a book.
Yes.
Right? Another dump and run. You give somebody something to do. You don't give them the resources that they needed to get it done, and you disappear. So when they hit a stumbling block, when they start encountering obstacles and they're looking around for you, you're nowhere to be found. Again, not a way to endear yourself. But you don't want to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you're constantly hovering over someone. Delegate something to them, and every 5 seconds you're checking on them. You're looking over their shoulder. And sometimes they feel that, why don't you just take it back? You really don't trust me to do this. You're not letting go of the task. You're not giving me a chance. Another way the micromanager shows up is being so prescriptive. You know what the outcome you want is. Rather than just telling them what you want to accomplish and letting them figure it out, come up with their own system of doing it, you want to tell them every single step, exactly how they must do it. And so this too can frustrate your people and have them wonder, why did you bother to give it to me if you're not going to give me the opportunity to come up with a way that I can do it? Maybe I can, in my creativity, add something, make it more efficient, add something to the process. So we need to avoid going to those two ends of the spectrum. And rather, we need to delegate responsibility along with the authority to get things done and to trust our people and to be available, but not to hover.
Now, we're going to get to the sweet spot, Joan, because in it you also said the sweet spot is when we provide enough time for the task to be done right. We share relevant facts as well as the big picture. We provide needed resources. We provide time to ask questions and figure things out. We are assigning jobs to people who are competent to do them and letting go, but remaining available to help, monitoring progress without micromanaging, building confidence and trust with sincere feedback. We're going to come to those 10 commandments for effective delegation as listed in the book. But we're going to take a break and we'll come back and talk to you about that as well. Those 10 commandments for effective delegation. Stay with us. So this is where we are today, everyone. We're delving into the manager's first aid kit with Joan Underwood, who's put it all together because she has the experience and the expertise to guide us through this. A number of us sit in positions of responsibility and we get it wrong when it comes to delegation. The chapter looks at the art and science of delegation, and Joan is with us today as we continue walking through this. We've now come to the point, Joan, of looking at the 10 commandments. I love it, the 10 commandments of effective delegation. And you're saying this because you say, ask the question, where do we currently stand in the spectrum? And if we are currently falling into either of the two extremes that we just talked about, these 10 commandments can enable us to redeem ourselves. What's commandment number 1?
All right, so I love these 10 commandments, and it's so important for us to delegate only when it's appropriate. And we've touched on this before.
Yes.
Not everything qualifies for being suitable for delegation, either because of the nature of the task or because of the person. Because remember, the person has to be both able and willing. So that's our first job as effective managers, to determine, is this task suitable for delegation? And if so, who is the most appropriate person for me to delegate? To whom I should delegate this.
Yeah, and you gave us a flow chart where we saw why it is and when it is probably to best to delegate this particular task. Then commandment number 2 speaks to providing context. Sometimes time is a factor when it comes to providing context.
Okay, so yes, sometimes time is a factor, but then sometimes if you don't give the context, the task goes sideways because people don't understand the relevance and the importance and the nature of what is required. So in trying to take a shortcut to save time, you can put yourself and the person to whom you've delegated the task under severe pressure. So, you know, it's never too late to do things the right way. So don't rush into it and then find yourself struggling and having to redo it. It's important that the person understands the why of the task, the what of the task, what success looks like for the task, if they are to do it effectively and efficiently.
Always answer those questions in time. And then commandment number 3, delegate to the right person. Again, willing and able.
That's right. We've covered that piece, so you know it. Both willing and able. That's when you delegate.
Indeed so. And so you gave the TOAD definition. Folks, you can read it in the book yourself. Just look at it very carefully. Take your time. This is one of those chapters that's so big for delegation, and it's critical that we take our time and we read it and understand it. Commandment number 4 speaks to delegating authority and responsibility. That sometimes, for a manager, is very difficult to do.
Very difficult, but very essential. I'll tell you a quick story to illustrate what happens when you don't give both authority and responsibility. So I used to be responsible for the HR function in a major hotel here in Antigua, the Jolly Beach Resort. And the front desk staff had been tasked with ensuring that the visitors had a fantastic experience when checking in. So the front desk supervisor one evening realized that the British Airways flight was going to be hours late. They had had major problems coming out of the UK. And so the people were going to be exhausted. They were going to be hungry. And so she said, you know what? The dining room is going to be closed by the time they get here. Let's prepare some snacks and put them in the room and have some out in the lobby so those who want to hang around will be able to get something to eat. Contacted the kitchen staff before they left for the day, said, listen, here's the situation, I need you to prepare some snacks. Unfortunately, the same GM who had tasked the front desk staff with creating this wonderful visitor experience at check-in had also tasked the kitchen staff to cut costs. So when the request was made, the kitchen staff said, that's not in our budget, no snacks for you. And so they were given the responsibility, front desk, for creating this wonderful experience, but they were not given the authority to access the resources to get it done.
Wow. So now we see the importance of giving both authority and responsibility. Number 5, commandment number 5 speaks to support. Support, don't abdicate. Don't run from your responsibilities, but support through the process.
Right, and we spoke about the dump and run folks at the far left of the spectrum, that they say, okay, get this done, disappear, there's no support. So don't be that person.
Indeed.
That's a sure way to erode the trust that your people have in you and to gain an awful reputation as a manager in the process.
Then you also talk about specifying the results. That's so important, to specify the results that you want. You know, if you don't set fair and reasonable targets within a particular time frame as well, because that's commandment 7, establish the time frame, then you're going to be creating chaos, and it's going to be so unfair to the employee to whom you've delegated. So one needs to pay attention to that as well, specifying the results and establishing the time frame. It's so unfair. But number 8 goes on to determine the level of delegated authority. Again, that links to what we just talked about too. Is Joan there? All right, seems as if we have just have a little bit of a problem with Jones. But it talks about determining the level of delegated authority, and we talked about that in commandment number 4. And so everything is interrelated, and you'll find that it's such a practical guide. And in doing so, when you get the book, you can see it all in there. Check for consistency and overlap. Sometimes you don't get it right. As a command is particularly important when you're working on a project or other ventures which have interdependencies. So consistency and overlaps where those occur, you need to be able to eliminate or enhance as it goes as well. And Joan, we're down now. Thank you for coming back. And now we're down to number 10, commandment 10, track progress and be available. Let's see, Joan.
Yes, so when you're delegating, it's important to establish with the person how are we going to communicate, how are we going to stay in touch about this. So you may say, all right, you go ahead, do your thing, just update me every so often. Or here are the milestones I need you to report back on. So when you get this aspect done, just give me a heads up. So let them know how it is you want them to stay in touch with you and how you will continue to communicate with them so that they don't feel abandoned. They know you, they have your support, but at the same time, you're not micromanaging them.
Indeed. Avoid the dump and run. Do not micromanage. Stay in contact. So many things that we can still work on working to become more effective managers of people and processes. Joan, thank you as always for joining us this Wednesday morning. I want to thank you so much and look forward to joining you again next week should God spare life. All right? Great. Remember, you can get a copy of the book by going to Days Bookstore in town. You can get a copy of Joan's book, Manager's Toolkit, Manager's First Aid Kit, or you can go to the website utdsinc.com, utdsinc.com, or the book is available on Amazon. We're going to take a break right here, and then we'll come back to meet that summer sensation, Amber. as our summer sensation. What a 2021 it has truly been for this guest of ours, Amber OKEYA. Good morning to you, Amber.
Good morning, Pearson, and good morning, Barbados.
Good to see you again. And for all of us who went to Coleridge Perry, hello. Indeed.
Hello.
Indeed. Amber, what a year you've had. 2021 has been outstanding for you, soca grouping.
It has been. It has been. It really has been. And I'm really thankful that as a first timer coming out, that I had the year that I had. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, we would have seen you, your face and your body behind as a backup singer, but you stepped forward and you sang your song, and you sang your song to a winning position in a competition. And so now Amber is a known performer. Talk to me a little bit about that decision to step out from behind and come to the front.
So it all started when Peter Ram reached out to me earlier in the year. He said, well, come and do some backing vocals for me. So when I got to the studio with John Doe, we were putting down the backing vocals, and the guys were like, Amber, why don't you sing this year? There's really not going to be a crop over season. And, you know, you could really put yourself out there now and feel it out. I thought the guys were joking. The following week, I saw a call from Ram. Ram was like, yes, it's true. I wrote the song though, so let me know when you come into the studio. I was like, you serious? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And basically that is how it went from there. I just went into the studio, I did the track, and it just took off.
Were you surprised at how Barbadians just embraced the song and loved it?
Yes, I was so surprised. Personally, I was very, very, very surprised. That is the honest truth, because I've seen younger artists in the industry struggle, especially in the first few years. So seeing my song in the rotation constantly, you know, getting the requests for interviews, that kind of stuff, it was actually quite shocking.
It was shocking to me too. When I heard this, wait, that's Amber? That is Amber? And I was like, wow, really, really good work. But then you didn't stop right there in the summer period. You decided you were going to do something with your daughter for Christmas.
Yes, please. Yes,
what a
please.
beautiful song that is too. Tell me about
Thank you. So shortly after I won the competition, Pastor John Yar reached out to me and he said, I want you to do a Christmas song. And I was like, babe, you serious? He said, yeah, Amber, I won't work with you. So we got together and we went to the studio. My daughter Alexis was with me from the initial song. And she was always active and involved. Like she was saying, Mommy, well, I'm not hearing the drums as yet. I'm not hearing the bass. I'm not hearing the guitar. And I was like, I never taught this child any of this because I always said I would let her decide on where she wants to go.
Yes.
So then she came into the studio and she was singing the song and she said, Mommy, can I sing with you? I said, yeah, you can sing with me. And initially I said to John, John, so can we have her in the last verse of the song? He said, no.
Yes.
He said, we're going to do something different and we're going to have her all throughout the song. When it came to her studio session, she put on her headphones and she told the producer, I'm ready. Let me warm up first. And that was the production of the song.
Alexis is all you. I'm telling you, she has your personality, your spirit indeed. And she's only 5 years old. 5 years old. Where did the time go? It went so quickly indeed. It seems as if just yesterday she was born, you know, and here she is now being a recording artist. And so marketing of the song though, I mean, these are not usual times. So how has it been putting yourself out there and marketing for visibility so that you get the airplay and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so what I would have done is that I would have used the traditional channels, which would be to push it through the radio stations, and social media, you know, run the sponsored ads, make sure that your engagement is up. What I also did was to tap into the digital side, because I find that is where we need to go as artists, you know, so that we could make money in that field. I see the other international artists and stuff like that using the Spotifys and the iTunes and the Apple Music, etc. So I've placed my music on those platforms as well.
What did Alexis say about the finished production for Christmas?
She was so fussy. Oh my goodness. She said to me, Mommy, I want to be a superstar. I said, well, superstar is baby.
That is sweet. So when she eventually gets to the point where she says, Mommy, I want to be an entertainer, I want to be an artist, what do you think Amber will say?
I will support her. I think that I will support her and try my best to just keep pushing her and stay behind her
Yes.
if that's what she really, really wants to do.
Do you think motherhood has changed you in any way?
Yes, it really has. I am a bit more patient. Well, I'm significantly more patient. Um, yeah, in that regard.
Wow. And you didn't think for one second you had the capacity to love in the way that you do now, right?
Indeed.
I'll tell you.
Indeed.
It shocks the individual because it's like, but I loved before, but this one, I would give my life for. And
Yep,
you're,
you're
then you,
a person.
yeah, and you take yourself back, you thought, but wait, did I just say that? And you mean it, because you literally
Yep,
mean it. And that's so beautiful. So for those who, again, the song is available online, on most of the download platforms as well, the streaming platforms, so you can get it there. Do you think you'll be writing something else for Cropover, maybe, 2022?
Yes, I am so excited for Crossover 2022. I've already started to link with producers and writers. Nervous because there's an expectation having won a title. But I am
Yes.
really looking forward to it and see where it goes.
Well, we're looking forward to it too. So, Amber, I wish you every success. You and Alexis, such a beautiful little girl you got there. And again, good to see you. All the success is yours for 2022 from all of us here at Morning Barbados. And we're looking forward to even greater work coming from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome indeed. She goes by the name Amber OKEYA, and of course this, as you can hear it, is her song. It is sweet indeed, and it was released for Christmas indeed. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
So folks, as we go out enjoying the sounds of Amber, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We've had a wonderful morning so far, but thank you so much, my producer Nadia Foster, technical director Roel Ford. At sound is Michael Sobers. Tamisha Green has been at Master Control. Thank you for joining us. Should it be God's will, we'll see you again tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.